All right, I'll call to order the Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, October 18th. Need your roll call, please.
Commissioner Dunn,
Present.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Present.
Commissioner Howard,
Present.
Commissioner Renaud,
Present.
Chair Waymeyer.
Present. If you'd please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We pray with me. Almighty God, be with us in this meeting. Be with the commissioners. We know you are a God of justice and peace, and we pray that that spirit be among them as they make the decisions for our county. Be with all the county workers. Keep them safe. Be with all those that are here to present. Be with all those that are not here that should be. Make them safe. Thank you for all of the work that the commissioners and all the county workers do to keep our county going. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Do we have any correspondence or organizational business?
Yeah, we have what's listed on here.
Right.
Ms. Harris from the Conservation District is here to give an update.
Righty. You want to come on up, Kim? Carrie? Sorry.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I just wanted to come and give you guys a brief update, other than asking for money. So first of all, the Conservation District Board would like to thank you for your continued financial support. We greatly appreciate the $295 increase that you recently approved for us for 2018. The Conservation District is continuing to support a great deal of conservation education programs. We recently presented at Day on the Farm out at Sylvester Ranch. We had 120 third graders participate in our annual conservation poster contest that focused on healthy soil is full of life. The board also allowed me to present at the Topeka Water Festival, which has about 1,200 students attend, and the Douglas County Water Festival, where I facilitated interactive lessons on non-point source pollution to nearly 400 students. Staff from the Topeka and Douglas County festivals will both come down to Ottawa in April to help with our Earth Day celebration. So it's a trade-off on those presentations. Not only are we focused on student education programs, we're currently offering scholarships for first-time attendees to attend the No-Till on the Plains Conference in January, and plans are already underway for our 77th annual meeting to be held January 18th, where we'll present the annual Bankers Award for Conservation to local farmers. In June, I was one of 50 national participants selected to attend an EPA grant-funded environmental education leadership program. We traveled to the National Conservation Training Center just outside of Washington, D.C. for that event. And then in August, representing the Conservation District, I was appointed to serve as the vice chairperson for the Merdocine Regional Advisory Committee through the Water Authority. The regional advisory committees are similar to what used to be the Basin Advisory Councils. Currently, the Merdocine RAC is working with various agencies and entities to evaluate the region's water resources. We're working closely with the Kansas Water Office, the Kansas Water Authority, and the Governor's Water Vision, conservation districts, RAPS groups, and water assurance districts to discuss and study the current water issues affecting the region. The Merdocine RAC is hosting a State of the Resource Luncheon December 6th in Paola. I have a copy of that invitation for the event that I will leave for the commissioners and invite you all to attend. At the recent RAC meeting, I gave an update of conservation programs and how the work that the Conservation District has done over our 76 years overlap the goals of the Water Vision and the RAC committee goals. We continue to administer funding for the installation of best management practices for soil health, soil erosion, as well as water quality and wildlife habitat. The funds for these programs are allocated through the Kansas Department of Agriculture's Division of Conservation through the Kansas Water Plan. This past July, we received a total allocation for Best Management Practice installation for Franklin County in the amount of $23,586. We had applications valued at over $73,000. So just to give you an idea of how the state budgets have impacted conservation, 5 years ago, our allocation was $37,000, and 10 years ago, we were at $63,000. And that equates out to about 50 to 60% of the contract value. We only offer a percentage of the cost share payment to the local farmers. In addition, 10 years ago, we were receiving $3,000 to assist with our educational programming. Those funds were cut in 2010, and we have continued to average about $5,000 a year on our education and outreach programs. In closing, the most recent education outreach program that I want to highlight was our September 28th tire collection. We had 87 landowners sign up following the advertising that we did with the local paper and through our newsletter. We ended up collecting 1,787 tires in about 4 hours. So we were lucky the weather was great that day. We received an invoice from the tire cutters at Centralia for $5,926. And the Conservation District Board feels this is a beneficial program, that they utilize our enterprise fund, which is the money that we generate from our grass seed sales and our no-till drill rental. So they feel it's a beneficial program for the residents, for the health concerns, to not have the old tires piled up, and of course to keep them out of the creeks and streams. So that was a big project. It's a long day, but certainly beneficial, and had great response to that. So again, I just want to thank you for your continued support, and encourage you to attend that State of the Resource meeting on December 6th. I'd answer any questions if you had them.
You have other tire bays planned in the future?
It will probably be 3 years. That's
3
kind of what
years.
we've averaged, is about once every 3 years. I've been here almost 18, and this was the 4th one. There was a big gap at the beginning. But this company that we've been working with out of Centralia is great, and it runs so smooth. He brings a crew and a skid loader, and it's a lot of work, but it's easy work considering what we're doing. So yeah, definitely would work with them again to do another one. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Do we have any public comment? Nope. All right. Brings us to our consent agenda, which today would include claim vouchers in the amount of $604,318.59. Minutes from our October 11th meeting, and there are no tax change orders. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Abstain from the minutes and yes on the remaining items.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes,
Chair Waymeyer.
Yes. First item of business is consider a request from the Wellsville American Legion to contribute funds towards the 2017 Veterans Day celebration.
Thank you. I'm Commander Eggleston over at Wellsville American Legion Post 194. We're here to ask for $200 to serve meals to our veterans after our Veterans Day program over at the Wellsville High School. And we generally serve somewhere between 40 and 50 veterans and their spouses and widows. And we'd like to invite you guys to our program and the dinner afterwards if you'd like to come. We have a good program, we believe, and we have good speakers most every year, so, and we'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right. And we've done this before, as I understand.
When is it? I'm not seeing.
November 10th?
November 10th?
Yep.
Is that 10 o'clock?
The program starts at 10 o'clock at the high school, Friday. Yeah, that's what I said, Friday, November 10th.
I just have one question, which sport some other Veterans Day programs would be appropriate. Just have one motion to approve all these veteran programs at the same time? Or do we still need everyone to come in that requests it?
I mean, that's something we could potentially look at moving forward. I don't think it would be proper to do it today because I don't have an accumulation of all of those events and certainly that would be something that the board would have to decide if you want to handle it that way. But in terms of today, I think it'd be better to just handle this request. And it's a request for funds. Did you specify the amount of funds?
You said $200.
$200. Okay. Yeah, and I think that is something we've done every year since I've been here, and I think the amount's been pretty consistent at that $200 mark, so.
All right. Was there a motion to contribute $200 to the Wellsville American Legion to go towards the Veterans Day celebration?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire.
Yes. All right, our second item of business, Susan Rader is here from the Tourism Department to introduce a potential contract for consulting.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to say that my husband did have an opportunity to attend the American Legion program that they had at Wellsville, and it was very, very nice. So I appreciate you guys making sure that our veterans and their survivors are remembered. Franklin County has a lot of great events, and I should know because I've worked probably most of them. But one of the things that we do really well in Franklin County is target specific groups. We've got the car show people and the Power of the Past people and the quilt show people. But car show people don't always attend the Power of the Past and vice versa. I was at the Friday Forum and met with the new Herald director, and one of the comments that he said was, I didn't realize that only 30 minutes away you all had such interesting and exciting events, or I would have brought my family down. And I thought to myself, that's a wake-up call at how we're missing the mark. I think one of our biggest concerns we have here in Franklin County is how is our message not being read, and more importantly, what message are we sending to people outside of our own community? We're at the cusp of a new direction with the county in charge of tourism, and we have a big decision to make. We have to decide what our message will be, who do we send it to, and how do we get that message out? And this is where my request to you all comes from. As we set up the tourism committee, I'm asking for the commissioners to see the wisdom in retaining someone like Lee to provide services. I'm not asking to reinvent the tourism wheel here in Franklin County. I think we've got a great bike. We just need to decide what kind of tires to put on it and what path to take. We already have a great community. We have great opportunities. We're not a Lawrence, we're not a Johnson County, but we're Franklin County, and we've got something really special. Lee has 15 years in creative development. He's worked in higher education. He's worked for nonprofits. He's helped develop identities and promote new products, work with clients, and also having educational partnerships. I feel like the tourism board that we're going to create will act as a guide, but Lee can help us hear what that group is saying and put those plans into motion. I believe you all received his plan. Did you receive a copy of that? I did bring some today, if you'd like to see another copy. But it basically lays out his development plan, basically to increase tourism in Franklin County, which would benefit everyone. I think he would do that by evaluating what we have, where we're going, the visitors that continue to come in, and also to support tourism promotions using media. I feel like my job would be then to implement the plan that's put into place after we evaluate and work with our committee or our board. So at this point, I'm asking you all to allow me to potentially earmark some money out of my budget to include that in my tourism budget as we move forward. What can I ask for you today?
How much money are we talking?
At this point, the proposal that Lee had given me was $12,000. I did not know that there was a dollar figure for getting other proposals out there. So that was, I guess on my part, short-sighted that I should have checked that out. So if this is something that you want to have him redraft and reevaluate dollar-wise, or if you need me to do some additional research, I have contacted other tourism agencies. For example, Emporia is one that has completely rebranded their downtown. It's been extremely successful. They've really moved forward, but they spent in the area of $20,000 to $30,000 for that.
To clarify her comments, because this is over $10,000, this obviously had to come to the board for its approval, and something like this always would have came to the board irregardless of that. Having said that, there's nothing in our purchasing policy that mandates that we put this out for bid. Having said that, if you're interested in this type of service and you want us to, we certainly can. That's entirely up to the board.
How I met with Lee was I did some research. I contacted people in our community. I reached out to Ottawa University. He was very well recommended. He is someone who has lived in our community for quite some time, and also as a Kansas resident has had the opportunity to live in other cities as well.
You're Lee, right? Yeah. Do you want to come on up, maybe just briefly explain what, for everybody's benefit, what we might expect out of this?
Well, this will be fun. I think the idea of tourism, and Susan was right, I've been here for a little over 13 years now. I didn't know there was such a thing as Ottawa, Kansas, or Franklin County until I started looking for a house. I'm from Topeka. I moved to Johnson County, so I was used to lots and lots of stuff to do, whether or not I did it. And after a few years of living here, I realized that there's an immense amount of value in what Franklin County has to offer, but an even greater amount of worth, potential in what we're able to do. But that doesn't mean that, as Susan said, everybody's aware of it. So part of the proposal in putting this together was to be able to start to tell a story. That's some of what I feel personally is missing. We do have all of these things. We have Power of the Past. We have Cowboy Days. We have the River Run. And we have these seasons in which lots of stuff is able to be experienced. But those particular segments don't necessarily know about the other ones. So there's some dissonance, I suppose, in our community, and how we see a Main Street, and how we see some bits of community development that would help bolster tourism, and not just speaking to Ottawa, but speaking to some of the, frankly, beautiful things that we have around the area, some of the tours that could be developed, some of the ideas that the community itself has, and being able to bring together a much more whole picture, as I would see it. So what we see in a proposal then is the idea of starting to tell that story. I think at the beginning of it, it was 12 a year for the next 3 years so that we could see a lot of fruition. That's how campaigns move. It's hard to do it in a week. It's hard to do it in a month. It's better in a year. We do great at 18 months and 3 years. We've seen that with the university. We've seen it with Emporia as those sorts of proofs of concept. So what we have here are some ideas of organizing people, organizing calendars, and organizing a strategy that helps tell that story in a variety of media, in particular video, because we have a lot of outlets that we can use to get that story across. That's how I'd start.
Do you foresee, or either one of you foresee, the key to our tourism, and thinking mostly of motel usage, coming more from a one-and-done thing, such as the car show or the tractor pull or those, or like the bike trails are going to be an everyday type thing? Which of these ends up being the bigger draw for tourism, or is there such a thing as one being more important than the other?
Well, I don't think there would be, because all of it is beneficial to our community. Yes, during the car show, the hotels are full, But that doesn't mean we can't develop a plan to get those hotels booked on a better basis, because of our paths and our opportunities to bike and walk and things like that in this community. So, and without doing some research, I don't know really the answer to your question, Mr. Renaud.
Lee, what line of work are you, have you done this before, basically, or what do you mainly do now to give you the expertise in this?
I do, yeah. I work primarily with the university here. I also teach at Johnson County Community College in the graphic design program. And I have a fairly holistic approach that says, here's organizational development, here's some tenets of economics, here's what it means to design a poster, and this is why it has the impact that it can have. So we look at it from the idea of saying, here's a thing in a gooseneck microphone that I just smacked with my hand. But this is what it really does mean to somebody. We see it every day on the TV. We see it every day in a newspaper ad. We see the impact that a word or an image can have upon people. So to follow up on Susan's answer to the last question, it's like driving a stick shift. There's a balance between the things that you have available. Right now, we have a lot of potential in things like a bike trail. I'm working with the OCPI right now on their branding committee to help develop that into a realistic thing. But we also have these one-and-done ideas that really do benefit the motel, but not all the time. So it's the difference between saying, this is a place I'll go and then I'll leave, or this is a place that I'll go and treat it as a destination. And I think that is the equilibrium that we want to go towards as a county, is finding out whether or not, and I think it is, Franklin County has the things that will enable it to be a destination.
And this is where I really hope that Lee would be able to work with the board to come up with a plan. I can spend $3,000 on an advertisement in the Kansas Travel Guide. What does it do? I don't know. Does it reach our target audience? I'm not really sure. Do people come in and say, I'm so glad to be here because I saw your ad? Never. I don't want to take the county's money and advertise our county and not have any result from that advertisement. And that's where I really feel I need direction.
So if I understand what you're saying, you've done a promotional campaign for Ottawa University? Is that correct?
That's my everyday business.
That's
absolutely.
your everyday business.
And I develop these for clients as well, as Susan said, in the nonprofit sector and all things high fashion, which is its own strange land.
And looking at your proposal under number 4, it talked about support mechanisms of auditing an online calendar for a hub of events, et cetera. That's something that the tourism's calendar, I presume you're talking about, or other events that are taking place in our county that you would monitor?
Not necessarily monitor, but provide a means that people could interact with them. What we have is stuff all over the place. And even if we have a tourism calendar for Franklin County, it doesn't necessarily mean that people know about it, or that when they get there, the information is exactly what they need.
You also talk about multi-channel awareness campaign in accord with identity campaign, and you're talking about print, online, social, video, and radio, and I presume that the county has taken means to handle some of the social. That's one of the things we had discussed at one time with the IT department. You would assume some of that role then? Is that part of what this would be? I just wanted to feel out what is the scope of what your work would be.
And maybe I can speak to that issue, Mr. Oglesby. Currently, right now, I'm doing it all. Any kind of posting that comes up on Facebook or updating our current website, I'm handling all of that at this point. I don't believe I have the knowledge to always know why this post gets a lot of results and why this one doesn't, and that's again where I feel that he would be very beneficial moving forward. Who is my target audience with this post? Why did it get a good response when this one I thought was better? I don't know the answers to those, and those are the things that I hope to learn more so I can move forward in doing it all.
Yeah, and you talk about radio spots and stuff like that. I mean, if you're looking to draw tourism in, are you looking to a local radio, or are you looking to a Kansas City, Topeka, Lawrence market? I mean,
Some of that would be seasonal, and some of that is that initial evaluation, seeing who our people are. Because what we found is that even people within the community might not necessarily know what's going on. So if we start the story locally, we slowly build the expansion, then I really do believe that we're going to see a boost. And not just a boost, but a place that people really want to be, in season and out of season.
How much time would you anticipate spending? How much are we paying for your expertise? How much are we paying for your time? Maybe that'd be a better, how much would we see you, or would Susan see you?
This is a year-long proposal at this point.
Sure. On average month, how much time would you put towards this, I guess?
Per month, I think per week we could probably look at 10 to 15 hours as a commitment, and that's in between developing strategies, developing actual content, organizing other folks. Part of what I do is not try to do it all myself, so I have groups that I work with for things like photography and video development that I need to handle based upon a time basis to help out with that. So some of those funds would also go to pay them.
Okay.
But 10 to 15 a week over the next year is, I think, more than enough. And we'll see bigger groupings of that time allocation to organize folks, really start to see ideas, and then provide us with some evaluation time to see how things are going.
Do you anticipate, I guess, putting together this plan, this, overall vision that would pretty, I guess, immediately generate more costs? It's great to make a plan. I mean, is it a plan that, would this be a plan that a year later be like, oh, we've got a great plan, we've got a lot of potential, it'll be another $100,000 a year, or I guess what?
But I guess we're already spending money.
We are. Is it
And my
better way
thought
to
is-
spend what we're already spending, or are we going to?
I'm a very frugal person, and I want to make sure that the money that I've been given the responsibility of making sure that it's used to the taxpayer's best interest is indeed doing that.
As am
and-
I. I'm just trying to
Yeah, I
understand
don't-
what this.
And I would never just say, hey, I need more money based on this. I would say, okay, this plan is working. We've always put money in paper. Maybe that's not where we should put it. Maybe we need to take some of our money that we use for printing posters and move it over here.
So
I'm
then,
not
so that
saying we're
question,
gonna-
you'd more likely anticipate using your existing resources more effectively
Yes,
as
that's
opposed to
exactly
creating
correct.
this plan to stick on top of what we're already doing.
Yes.
That's that's kind of what I was digging for. So.
And I think that if this were a service that we wanted to utilize, I think one of the first conversations between the two of them would be to let him know, here's kind of what we're working with budget-wise, so he doesn't start recommending, 3-minute promotional videos and radio ads that we can never afford. I think we kind of outline that with him and say, here's what we're willing to do, and I'm assuming he would have the dexterity to craft a plan based on that, so.
What about the board of directors? Is this a thing that's still in progress, our board, or where are we at there?
I have shared some names with Derek. We haven't had an opportunity to get back together to take a look at that. When I shared the information, at that point, we weren't sure what direction the board was going to go on how many members, and Derek was still researching that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like that board of directors is going to be a key component of.
Very much
this
so.
thing. So,
Very much
yeah.
so.
Getting that in place,
First.
yeah, somewhere in that, that's, I guess so.
If I could double back on the question about hard costs versus soft costs, I'm a bit of both. But when it comes to things like materials, when we talk about repurposing, that's something I'm incredibly conscious of. I work with press rooms every day. I work with production departments on video and audio every day. As much of that as I can do myself, I do. mainly because I'm probably a little OCD in that regard, and I have nice microphones. But I don't see an extravagant rise in any fashion for hard costs at this point. We're in stage one of what could be a three-stage process of saying this is who we are as Franklin County. And a lot of that is planning. A lot of that is some of the initial identity work, initial development work.
Susan, did you approach Lee, or did Lee approach you for this service?
I reached out to him based on some conversations I had with some OU staff when I was looking for someone that I felt could help give me some direction and marketing skills, creative skills. I'd like to say that I can do it all, but I don't think I can. And I think I'm pretty good at getting people moving. I'm a good people person, but I will be honest with you, I don't have a marketing background. And I really feel that in order to do the best for my community, I need some assistance and some guidance and help with a vision.
One thing that I would add, just for you to take into consideration, when we brought this in-house, we talked about the potential of IT being able to provide some marketing services. And we had those discussions for quite some time. And as it turned out, neither me nor the IT director ended up particularly comfortable with him handling those services. So I don't think that's going to happen. So we won't be expending any funds towards that. And this has been something that Susan has, whether or not you want to do this plan, from the beginning, Susan has represented that she's not a marketing expert. You know, we've brought up the name Genelia Myers, who the chamber has utilized. I mean, all of these discussions have been had, so just want to make sure that gets kept in mind.
Personally, I like this idea. I'm not sure I'm on board of a 3-year contract or anything like that. My thought would be more of a 1-year thing and see where we're at the end of that. And
I think that's what's in front of us.
see if it's going, but I know we talked about 3 years to really get something accomplished, but I can see a 1 year.
Pardon my interruption. This is a 1-year agreement for $12,000.
Right.
I think he was just sharing that sometimes 1 year is not enough to get
Right.
work done. And one of the things that I think Lee is very aware of, and I think you all are as well as being citizens in this community, things change. What our plan was and what worked 10 years ago doesn't work today, and we found that out.
Would there be any effect on the budget being it's this time? I know we talked about using her budget in the middle of the budget year, basically.
Well, I mean, obviously, we're committing $12,000 if you choose to do it, but no, it's not going to adversely affect
Her budget.
And we're still, I mean, so we didn't take this over right at budget time. We're still in the process of figuring out exactly what her budget is, and there is going to be a marketing services line in that. But I would say that we're certainly not in a bad place budget-wise in terms of TGT funds, so.
So this will come out of tourism.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that if Lee's working for OU and they're recommending to Susan, and he's also teaching at Johnson County, some pretty good credentials there, in my opinion. I'd be on board with it. I don't know if you want a motion today or not, but
If the board's comfortable, we could certainly take a motion and get this started, but.
Any other comments before we do motion?
Well, my only thought is I like the idea, I like the plan. It's visionary, is what you're trying to do, is to put a vision out there. I'm a little reluctant to jump forward without hearing somebody else's proposal from another viewpoint and see what they have to offer personally. I mean, I appreciate what you've put before us, but I also would like to know, is there somebody else that we can compare side by side to look at, so that we know what we're getting and to know it is a value. Does that make sense?
I understand.
That's just my own view. But
Anyone else?
No, I'm okay where we're at with this one, other than I would like to see the board of directors know that we have it in place, that we're going to have that to start out with, rather than spend 2 or 3 months going, before we get the board there. That would be my only concern, is that, hey, let's get the board there, get it ready. And maybe they have to buy into this as well as anybody else, I don't know.
We
But
go
I'm not
forward.
opposed to waiting either. I mean, it's not a problem to wait.
We go forward, is there a way to measure the progress or accomplishments, or?
Absolutely. We'll put everything to a firm timetable with milestones established for any sort of community inclusion, any sort of asset or deliverable development. That includes your identity campaign, any print, any radio scripts, any radio recording, any video development, so that we can see where those things fall. And the importance of that is because we do have in-market timeframes. There are parts of the year that we need to make sure that those things are heard, that we can reinforce them, and then we can put them on places like the visitor's website or any sort of social media outlet. That's what does build the momentum.
What, I guess one last question to backtrack. What in your mind is what's success? I mean, are we trying to, overall dollars spent, visitors, bed nights? What quantitative things are you hoping to increase?
I'd like to be able to go somewhere and people know where Franklin County is. I mean, really. I worked at Kansas Sampler, and I probably, I don't even know, 2,000 people that I spoke with that weekend. And when you would say, they would say, well, where's Franklin County? And you'd explain, oh, yeah, I've passed that on the highway. I don't want them to pass it on the highway anymore. I want them to come here for a reason.
But if they come here, then there's got to be a way to, I guess, measure that.
Well, if I get them downtown and they shop, if I get them to a restaurant, if they buy gas, if they stay at a hotel, if they utilize the trails, if they decide this would be a nice community to, bring my family to, if they go to the old depot, I'd say that's a win.
I agree. But which one would we measure?
I think we would measure all of them. Like Lee said, there'd be different times of the year when different things, we know that the car show brings people downtown. Power of the Past, nobody came downtown. How come? Could we remedy that? Would that be measurable? Yes. Am I answering your question? Sort of.
Kind of. I mean, if we're investing money, people knowing where we are has no return. That it's not. It's, I guess, nice and maybe the result of them having been here, but it's not.
Going to increase revenue over a long term? Is that what you're saying?
Well, and I think what Colt's asking, and Lee, maybe your experience in this, I mean,
Asking what
what
is success look like?
metrics would you measure? Like there has to be some objective metric that can be measured that would show success. I mean, people knowing about Franklin County is abstract, you can't measure it, but what tools would you employ to measure how successful this campaign is?
Certainly, I think at some point it would be wise to implement surveys for each of the primary events around town to let us know how people heard about it. The reason we do that is because we'll see people that haven't ever been here before that will start to show us reference based upon how they heard about it. That means then we do have a metric for whatever outlet that is. Not only will we have a metric for that, we'll have hopefully a bump in revenue. I don't anticipate it to be massive right away, but I do hope that there would be some sort of equilibrium reached, or at least a rising of the sea level, as opposed to something that is really seasonal or really event specific. So we'll see, I think, spikes. My hope is that we'll see spikes in awareness about what's going on, spikes in visitation to those things from people that are outside the county, people that don't really know about what happens here. And then at the same time, I hope to see a steady rise in constant visitation, constant tourism. In order for that to happen, it does need to be a destination, though. And I think there's enough here to help it become that. I think there's some things that are missing that are low-hanging fruit that could help make it a continual destination. So we have short-term metrics, and then we have some long-term metrics that we can.
I think we're on the same page from what you're saying. I mean, for me, success is increasing bed nights. That's where this revenue comes from. And if I understand it's not action, reaction, it won't be instant. But if it is successful, I see no reason why we wouldn't put more resources into it, like it would over time. And that won't be immediate, but to have more resources, we need to increase bed nights. And, you know, I guess to say that, well, measure success by there's a real buzz about it, that I don't care. Like, it has to, we're doing this for a reason, and the bed nights and ultimately revenue would be that, to me. And hence why I think we should measure it that way. But
And I think that is one way we would have to measure it. I mean, we know we can track hits on a web page, and I understand that's part of his service is you know, social media presence, so we can measure that. We can measure increased attendance at events. We can measure increase in, I mean, bed nights, we measure that. We measure that through the clerk's office. So I think those would be 3 examples of concrete things that we could measure, and I'm sure there are others, but I don't work in the industry, so I don't know. But I don't know what you keep track of, Susan. I know you keep track of literally visitors into your visitor center, but I don't think there's any way we track who rides down those trails or who.
I just don't want to be back here in a year kicking the ground saying, gee, things sure are great at the visitor center. There's a real buzz. How about some, you know, let's do this again. Like, I just want to lay out the expectations now, I guess.
I'm a part of the Active Transport Committee, and one of the things they do is track how many people ride the trails. So it could very well be, you know, with some of the information that I can provide them with that, we can find out if we reached out on a certain campaign, did it generate more? Because we have, you know, we have ways of tracking trail usage. You know, that's part of the plan too. Like Derek said, you know, things are going good at the visitor center. We track how many people come in, but that doesn't tell you if they go downtown and ride the trails, and I agree.
Well, the motels are the easiest ones, obviously, to ask every client that comes in when they register at a desk, why did you spend the night with us? You know, what's your occasion here? Without maybe being too intrusive. But to, in a restaurant, to ask that question is probably, you know, a little bit different. And even if you're doing a survey about who were the first time, is this your first time here, why are you here? Where did you hear about it? Obviously, it was from somebody else who was already here, or is it, you know, is it the word of mouth, or is it the video, or is it the radio spot, or whatever it might be? That to me would be. There's got to be some method, I'm sure they use to track that, but again, trying to come up with a way that will give us good results is difficult.
An option at your disposal is, I think it's a reasonable request. I think spending $12,000, you want to be able to measure what return you're getting on that investment. I think that's being a great steward of this money. I mean, we can ask them to go back to the drawing board and prepare. These are what we are going to measure. Here's how they are measured. Here's why they would demonstrate success, and bring that back before the board and give that presentation if that's something that would make this board more comfortable. You don't have to do that, but that is certainly an option, and I'm sure they would be willing to do that.
I guess since I threw it out there, I just wanted to make it, the expectation clear now as opposed to after the fact.
I appreciate
I
that.
think the plan that you put in front of us basically answers the question or answers the need that, you know, we've been talking about and wanted to see. I guess this is what we asked for, and Susan's done it, so in some level we owe her to give it a shot.
Well, on the 12,000, I'm sure Susan's putting a few thousand out there right now on advertising and so forth, and like she said, she doesn't really know what it's doing, so at least this gives us a lot better chance to have someone that's done this for a living helping her put that out there where he knows reaches the most people and so forth. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer that it's not going to be that much additional. It's probably going to be in the area the same as what's being spent out there now, and at least this ways we'll know more what it's doing.
Well, and to give you some perspective, and this is a very quick numbers crunch, but a $12,000 contract, if he's putting roughly 15 hours a week in over 52 weeks, I mean, we're talking about $15 or so an hour. I mean, that's certainly not an egregious, I mean, $15 an hour is obviously not an egregious amount of money, so I don't, just using the numbers he gave, and I guess use that however you will, but we pay a lot of our employees $15 an hour, so it's
And
to keep in mind.
Rick's comment about the hearing from some others on their vision and so forth, I mean, it's kind of tough when you start looking at tourism. I mean, the vision for Johnson County is probably quite different than Franklin County's, and the vision for Crawford County with casino and lakes and everything. I mean, it's a whole different.
It's a lot
different
like
ballgame.
apples and oranges, and when I attend a lot of the meetings, I'm in the Northeast Kansas region meeting, I'm working with the Leavenworths and the Johnson County and the Merriam and the Olathe and Lawrence. They do things differently because of their community. It's different. And it is a good idea to get other ideas, but it would be like apples and oranges comparison, I think.
And I like the fact that Lee does work here for Auto University, and I assume you do live here in town? And you live here and you know the situation that Franklin County's in, I'm sure, working for OU. So,
I think to increase tourism, we got to develop new events to increase tourism. Would that be part of this process you're
I
talking
think that'd be part of the discovery process, maybe not necessarily part of the first year, but if we can identify those things, that gives us time later down the road to organize them. One of the rough things with events is to say this would be neat and then do it, but not really do it all the way. Creates a negative net residual. Yeah, oh my goodness, yeah.
We had our first big cycling event here 2 weekends ago. I mean, I worked with the city. It was county employees. I worked with OMA. We worked with Main Street, and it was a great event. And the people that participated had a wonderful time. But we didn't have anyone from our community come out. So, yes, it was a great event. Yes, I think we'll probably do it again. But we need to rethink how we marketed that. Why didn't anyone come down?
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve a contract with Lee for consulting service?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Renaud,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
No.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer.
Yes. All right.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate
Thanks for all
it.
your time this morning. All right, thanks for coming in. Third item of business will be to consider approving an island annexation. It is by the city of Ottawa as petitioned by Kansas Department of Transportation.
Yeah, as you all, I'm sure, know, KDOT has a shop out on K68 Highway. They recently reached out to the city of Ottawa about obtaining city water. Apparently, they want city water because they mix a lot of this ice removal brine, and that would help them do that. And in those discussions, really the only way to do that is to annex them into the city. And, in most scenarios, the county doesn't have a lot to do with that process. However, what we have here is an island annexation, meaning that this property, it does not border the city in any way. It is surrounded by county property, and because of that, this board has to approve of that annexation. I'm obviously handling this in place of Larry today, but Larry recommends that we approve the resolution adopting this. I have reviewed all of this. I agree with the city manager's staff report. I think this is a proper reason to do an island annexation. It doesn't run afoul of our comprehensive plan. If you have any questions, I'll certainly try to answer them, but I don't see any issue with this at all.
Well, the letter I read, or somewhere I thought I read that it was, the reason they couldn't get the water there was because of the city's policy or something like that. I wondered why they just didn't make a change in their policy or an exception to their policy or something. I'm not opposed to it so much as it's such an awkward thing to have an isolated, maybe it's not as awkward as I think it is, but an isolated piece of property in the county. In this case, it's not way out, but it seemed like there was another avenue, but maybe it wasn't explored, or they didn't want to do it. Now, maybe there wasn't another avenue. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know.
Is there not real water in that area that they could hook to?
I'm assuming rural water was insufficient for what they, I mean, I don't know this, but I think the increased capacity of city water allows them to mix more of this brine or do so more efficiently. And they requested it, the city's happy to annex them in. In terms of what the city's policy is, admittedly, I'm not an expert on that, and I haven't talked to the city manager, so I don't know about that policy, but I do know that this is an appropriate reason for an island annexation, so.
Does Walmart get city water out there? So there's probably a water line right through that property anyway.
Yeah, which, yeah.
Large water line.
There's a very large water
They
line.
just have to tap into that water line then.
If the Walmart distribution center gets city water, that wouldn't make sense, that, because it's not in the city limits.
I think that was the only sufficient way to sprinkler the building of that magnitude was to be on a city water line, which was part of the agreement of them coming.
But I mean, if they made an exception for the distribution center, why can't they make an exception for KDOT? That's my question is.
Well, KDOT is requesting to be annexed. Like, the city's not forcing this. I don't know why the city would explore another avenue if KDOT is saying, I would like to be annexed into the city looks at it, we got a water line right through there, they're wanting utilities, we can do that. I don't think they had a reason. KDOT wasn't asking them to make an exception. They were okay with being annexed in, so.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
We have to prove it if it's not contiguous, city boundary. And I think this is a lot cleaner than, for instance, the way the airport got annexed, which is, there's I think a 100-foot strip all the way out to the airport, and then the airport's included in city limits. That's got to make some odd, as far as zoning and regulations and municipal code, that has to be a nightmare. So I think if that would be the third option, I would certainly prefer this over that. The one that's in front of us, the option that's in front of us over that.
Well, if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So you're saying that KDOT asked to be annexed to the city, not because the city refused them water so much, maybe, that they just wanted to be annexed or something? I'm trying to grasp that, I guess.
Yeah, according to the city manager's staff report, KDOT's area engineer contacted the city staff to find out what steps needed to be taken to receive city water. They're already receiving city sewer services. City staff informed them that they would need to annex. A consent for annexation was sent to KDOT. KDOT signed it, saying they consent to annexation. And that is based on Richard Neinstadt's staff report.
Can't see any drawbacks. They'll get fire protection from the city.
I just want to know if the Walmart would have a proprietary easement or something on the water, because they had it on the sewer. They helped fund the.
Yeah, and that would be an issue that is between them and the city. And the city passed a resolution asking this board to approve a resolution allowing this. And so in theory, if the city didn't do their due diligence in that regard, then that's going to be on them, and that'll be a dispute between them and Walmart. At this point, we're because again, it's Island, they're just asking us to sign off on this. I don't see, and I think you alluded to this, Colt, I don't see this being a burden on county resources in any way. And I have to rely on Larry and planning staff in terms of effect on comprehensive plan and any potential zoning issues, and I'm being told very clearly that there aren't any. So it's my recommendation based on my own staff's approval that we go ahead and approve this. So.
Well, with that being said, is there a motion to approve the island annexation by the City of Ottawa of 10.4 acres that was petitioned for by the Kansas Department of Transportation, the owners of the said property?
I'll make the motion to approve resolution KSA 12-520C.
Resolution would be 17-49.
Oh, that one.
Second.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud,
Yes.
Chair Waymire.
Yes. That brings us to staff reports.
I don't have much to report today, though I did ask Alan Radcliffe to be here to give the board an update on where we're at with the radios. A whole lot's been done in the last couple weeks, so if you want to apprise them, Alan, that'd be great.
Good morning.
Morning.
Before I get into the radio system, I just received notification last week that we were approved for the HMEP grant. That'll be coming to you in the next week or two to ask for acceptance. We requested that grant to update the county's emergency operations plan that comes due next year for the 5-year update. So that was good news for us. The radio system, all the equipment for dispatch and for the towers has been delivered to Franklin County. We have it sitting in storage. Inventory took place last week on that, and all of with Motorola, we have to go through a process following our proposal and our timeline. So that was done with Motorola. All of the radios they're called subscribers, the portables and mobile radios have all been delivered. They were inventoried last week also. There's 600 or 700 radios sitting just outside my office, waiting to be programmed. We're working still with KDOT on agreements. There's 2 different types of agreements. We have to get all the users have to have an agreement with KDOT to use the system. And then also we're waiting on the agreement for us to connect to the state system. And that's with a fiber from our main tower to Wichita, and working with AT&T right now to get that accomplished. The tower work has started. We've got at all 4 towers, they've started work just last week. They installed the air conditioners will be installed this week. One received air conditioning yesterday. The electrician has been out to the sites again, and we did come up with an issue. When we started this project, well, right after the project started, I guess in August, we do have Midwest Connections, an internet service provider, has been renting space on our towers. We contacted them that they would need to move some equipment, and during some of our conversations with them, there was also the proposal that they vacate our towers. That was one of the issues that came up. We need to get the equipment lowered so that our antennas can be placed on our towers. The electrician told us last week that there's not enough electrical capacity with all the equipment we're putting at the sites unless we add additional electrical boxes at our sites. And then also Motorola, because of the equipment that's on there, has some concerns and is requesting structural analysis be done on our towers with that. In the conversations, I've had 2 or 3 conversations, and Derek has sent a letter to Midwest Connections. We have asked them to vacate our towers, and there's a time frame in the contract that we have with them that would be middle to the end of November, I believe, for that time.
Yeah, and I would like to flesh that out a little bit. So we had contracts with Midwest on our towers. Our contracts state effectively that if we need those towers, you know, they have to remove their equipment.
They're emergency towers first and foremost.
Right,
Emergency towers.
that's exactly right. Now, I sent them a letter. In my letter, I said I was terminating the current agreements. However, we are open to negotiating new agreements. However, it appears as if engineering analysis is going to have to be done on the towers. So the way that letter read was, I'm canceling these. However, we're going to see if we can negotiate and work out an arrangement. Well, since then, we're being told that there are concerns given all of the new radio equipment, that we're going to have to do structural analysis. We're being told that we don't have the electrical capacity and would need to make modifications there. Given the importance of emergency communications and the potential expenditures that we would have to, to do, I think it's probably the better course of action that we just ask Midwest to permanently vacate, because
We don't have the electrical capability for our equipment, or we don't have the electrical capability for our equipment plus anybody who would want to rent space.
Our equipment plus.
Okay, what about the structural integrity? It's not enough to hold our equipment, or not enough to hold our equipment with plus a renter, a tenant?
The original design for our towers is enough to hold our equipment.
But not anybody additional.
Right.
and it's my understanding that, they've looked around for other sites and they don't have any, or they haven't found any that they have deemed suitable. And so I believe that a rep from Midwest Connections has reached out to you, Colt. One has reached out to my planning director. They've reached out to me. It's not that obviously we would love to accommodate them and be accommodating, but this is a very important system that we've spent a lot of time and money to put in place. I just don't think it's possible. And so I would ask that the board, it's not something I need a formal vote on as much as it is just kind of a vote of confidence that you're okay with us just terminating the current agreements and, asking them to find other opportunities.
It's been mentioned or implied that, if we do this, it's really gonna tick off your constituents because you're into their internet service, and, I guess that, it's been alluded to heavily that, that's why we shouldn't do this, or that we should, in effect, subsidize their operations by upgrading a tower site so that other people, a private business could operate.
We would still need additional engineering even if their equipment is removed.
No.
We would not need additional electrical capacity if their equipment is removed.
No. From what Performance Electric is telling me, the issue comes in the space in the box for the breakers and the capacity. We're already having to make some modifications if we go on generator power to accommodate our equipment to keep our system up and operational.
That sounds like a pretty big expense when you start asking an engineer to do an analysis anyway.
Well, and we talked with Midwest Connections about them paying for that, and they've had that option. They've had the option to lower their equipment, and in those conversations, they felt that they could lower some. They didn't want to pay the structural analysis, or they haven't got back with me, and I've asked them to send us a letter what their intentions were, and to my knowledge, we haven't received that letter back either.
There just gets to be a point where there are already enough moving parts in this project. I'm not sure I would, keep another potential issue in the mix when it is our right legally to exercise this option and retain full control of our towers.
It's just like if we were renting out our building to spaces in our building, we needed the space, and it's like, well, we shouldn't have to subsidize them finding new space. We need it.
I have furnished them with a map of all the towers in the county, so they have the ability to contact other owners of towers in the areas too.
That's, Randy, that's a perfect analogy, actually, yeah.
So besides those issues, we're still on our time frame. We did talk on having the system up and running by the end of the year, in meeting with Motorola and getting all of our agreements, getting our frequency coordination done and programming. We've had to back up that timeline. We're looking now at the 1st of February. Motorola does also need a month to have the system turned on and do their testing to make sure that the design that they have sold us is actually, the equipment is meeting that design or above. So the month of January looks like we'll, again, depending on the weather, will be a very busy month. But if we can get all of our equipment installed on the towers before bad weather hits, it looks like the month of January will be a busy month for us, doing training and installation of all the radios and all the vehicles across the county. Hopefully, we will have the equipment that is setting in staging right now out at the tower sites, and they'll start installing it in the next month. Any questions?
Looks like that's it. Thanks, Alan.
All right.
Any other staff reports, Derek?
No, other than I want to give Alan credit. He's went above and beyond what we've asked him to do here, not only on the radios, but there is a lot of interaction with the dispatch center and a lot of work that just a lot of work goes into that, and Alan's really taken the laboring oar on all of that, which goes well beyond, his job duties. Certainly appreciate the time that he's put into that, and that's, couldn't ask for more out of him, so.
All right, Jim?
Paint for the striping is to be delivered tomorrow, and the painter's scheduled to be here Friday to begin applying it to our chip-sealed roads. Second thing is KDOT received 83 applications for the off-system bridge program. They have selected 17 for funding, and one of them is ours for the bridge on Pawnee west of Eisenhower. So we'll have something on next week's agenda to get a request for a project back to them.
Jim, are we anywhere on getting a milling machine to mill off Highway 50 yet?
No.
Ally, do you have anything to add? No? Anything from the clerk's office?
We're mailing out our ballots today, and Janet's at a Road Scholar meeting today in Manhattan, I think. So,
Commissioners' comments, board reports?
I haven't anything.
Last Wednesday night, I went to the Wellsville City Council meeting. Several items. One of the main things, they sat down and met with a person to do long-range capital improvement plan, even beyond 5 years, so they could really start looking at, as certain debts are paid off, what money would be available for future projects and a list of those projects. And so they gave the go-ahead to start working to build that plan, so they would have that available. And that was pretty much it. Next Wednesday night, the 25th, the Wellsville Methodist Church has a fairly well-known annual ham and turkey dinner in the evening. It's a great meal for a great price. And then obviously the Wellsville American Legion Veterans Day program will be on that Friday the 10th at 10 a.m. I think that's it.
Roy?
Yes, I went to the Area Agency on Aging Policy Board meeting. It wasn't a meeting for the whole board. Basically, they talked about the reorganization of the classifications in their organization. And that was mainly that meeting, the purpose of that meeting was for that. But anyway, the discussion came up about the Mid-American Nutrition building out there at the industrial park and the leakage. And apparently the leakage is in the warehouse area. Right now it doesn't affect the preparation of food and that sort of thing, but they did solicit all the participating counties for funds to help repair the roof, and several of the counties declined to participate in that solicitation. They wanted more information and that sort of thing, and apparently insurance, they didn't have insurance to cover that sort of problem, and it wasn't a hail event or something like that caused the problem, so it was more like an age problem. And anyway, the consensus was that they weren't going to help do that until they found out a little more from the nutrition people about the problem, and just kind of wait and see if they come forward to do a presentation to the commissions of the counties and do a formal request, other than just send out a letter out of the blue and say we need $5,000 apiece from all the commissioners. So it was kind of a wait and see what they really want to do or are going to do, and the bottom line is if they couldn't get donations from the partners or all the counties that were going to get a loan to fix the roof or something like that. So that might be the remedy in the long run, and that might be the best remedy for them and for all of us to have them get a loan and do it that way. So my recommendation to my fellow commissioners is wait and see what the Mid-American Nutrition is going to do, and see if they come and do a formal presentation and do us. And that's, then I went to the ECAN board meeting last night, and they did the same thing. They were talking about reorganization in their group, and both these groups, the reorganization was basically for succession of leadership. They both created a assistant director position in both groups, so that was kind of coincidental that they both did it on the same day and the same time for the same reason.
I attended the hospital's board retreat meeting yesterday. They got a presentation from a consultant. It was really good, wealth of knowledge. Really well done presentation. They presented information on their recommendations as far as their operations, services offered, facilities, finances, all those things. Did a good job of saying, generally how they see from a very objective point of view the health of the hospital or performance in all those areas, and what other hospitals that size are doing, have done, what the trends are, what the reality or future for a hospital that size is. Hospitals in better shape than most. Well, most have either affiliated by now or gone under, and we don't have debt at our hospital, so we're very lucky to have gotten this far. But the future is also equally as challenging, so. They did a good job of laying out all the possible avenues going forward, and we'll say it's a lot easier for them to look at these things and make evaluations now as opposed to if they were, like the consultant said, usually they just get called in once kind of the ninth inning, their last breath. You know, a hospital's about out of money and it doesn't have a lot of options. They said, we're lucky that we have plenty of options. There's all kinds of, you know, we really own our future still, so. But it's good that they, such a large, important operation like that, employs so many people and so many dollars of revenue, takes a step back and looks at where they are, where they could be, their strengths and threats, and is a very, very good meeting. So. All right. Anyone else? Anything else before we look to adjourn?
We have an executive session on the
Sure do, don't we? All right. How long?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the potential acquisition of real property pursuant to the exception allowing for preliminary discussion relating to the acquisition of real property in a closed session for 15 minutes with the board and the counselor?
So move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Going in at 9:46, so we would be coming out at 10:01. We are back out of executive session. No actions taken, no decisions were made. With that, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.